In programming in general, conditional logic is used to guide the flow of information through a process. So we can think about this as saying, if the following thing is true, then we should do this, but if the following thing is not true, then we should do that. And then this kind of branching pathway down through the garden of many paths. So the big idea here is that we want to make decisions based on data. We want to transform things based on information. And how can we do that? Well, we have a ton of different options. Some of them fairly simple and some of them much more complicated. So let's take a little look here at, again, the books data set, the bookshop data set, and look at just a couple kind of illustrative examples of how calculated fields can provide us access into conditional logic. So let's look at, okay, there's one field that I don't really like very much in here, and it's format. So let's take a close look at format. So if we go into an addition here, notice that format has a bunch of different values. We have hardcover, we have mass market paperback, but then we also have trade paperback, and then we also just have paperback. And then in addition to this, we have graphic books and board books, wherever those are. Anyway, I don't know what most of these things are. And honestly, if I'm doing the analysis sometimes and I'm just trying to think about how my product categories are broken down, I might want to look at this at a lower level of detail than this might provide. I could certainly do that with groups or sets, groups and or sets, but let's try it with conditional logic here to see how that would work. So let's make a new calculated field, and we're going to call this format simplified. And we're going to structure this using the classic if, else if, end, like that. Pretty much this. If this, then that. Else if this, then that, and then an end at the very end. So we'll say if format equals, and let's say hardcover first. Hardcover. Then we want the value to be hardcover, so we'll keep that one the same. Notice that if you're familiar with programming in Tableau and in SQL, when we're testing equality, we don't actually have to have the double equal sign. So that's very common in most scripting or programming languages. But because here we're not doing that, we're not ever assigning variables in the same way. Single equals is not reserved, and so we don't have to resort to double equals. If all of that was like, what the hell is he talking about with double equals? Don't worry about it. Basically, this is asking, is format equal to hardcover? If so, then keep it as hardcover. And then we can say, else if format equals, and then let's do all the paperback. So it was mass market paperback. And then here's how we can start chaining the logic together. Or format equals trade paperback, or format equals just normal paperback. In all of these cases, I just want to boil things down to paperback. Then the value is going to be paperback. And finally, else other. If it's not one of these things that I've seen so far, just call it other, and then we have to cap the whole thing off with an end. So let me just review what this is saying. If the format is equal to hardcover, the new variable will be called hardcover. If the format is mass market paperback or trade paperback or normal paperback, the new variable will be called paperback, and everything else, no matter whether there's 2 other categories or 50 other categories, everything else gets dumped into other. Okay, so here we have our format simplified, and let's just check. So let's do format in our rows, format simplified in our columns, and we'll do a count of the additions as text, just to show that that this is working the way we expect it to be working, right? So in our new paperback, that is all of the old paperback varieties. Our other are these board book and graphic novels, and hardcover is hardcover. So everything's good there. Let me take one more step in this direction and go back and edit format simplified. I just want to point out that like this line is obviously tedious, right? Like this stinks. Like what if you had 15 different versions of paperback? No one wants to list all those out. So there are shortcuts to a number of kind of deeper levels of functionality that we can use to boil down some of these expressions. So for instance, here we could say contains, and then the question is what contains what. So we want to know if format contains paperback. If that is true, then we do paperback. Otherwise, we continue along. So hopefully what I should see here is when I hit apply, that nothing should change over here. So notice nothing did apply. Like everything's good. Where if I said zebra, I should see everything disappear, which is what happens, but I can put it back the way I had it. So this contains can be really helpful to kind of if you know you have like the same thing over and over and over again, or a substring in each one of these things and you want to boil them all down, this is great. I want to point out, like, you might be asking yourself, well, why wouldn't we just use sets or groups to do this? This is actually faster. If you have 100 different values, this is actually faster than grouping them by hand or creating a set. And you can do it like in much finer levels of detail. So this is often what we see, is that these kind of graphical tools where you kind of point and click, those are good at the beginning, but really when you get right down to it, you're actually going to want to like write the code. It's actually a lot easier in a lot of cases just to write the code than it is to do any of these more complicated things. So that's a very basic intro. There aren't too many other things. The only one I would point out is that instead of or, this or that, you can say this, and they all have to be true. But the big ideas are all the same. We can post a list to all the conditional logic functions that Tableau gives you access to, but for the most part, they're all pretty simple.